Good evening. I just want to welcome everyone to the October 15th Board of Selectmen agenda, Tuesday evening. Announcement that this meeting is being recorded. And before we start our meeting, we just want to take a moment of appreciation for our brave servicemen and women that are serving in Afghanistan. Just take a moment. Thank you. We have two appointments tonight. At 7 o'clock, we've got our new school superintendent, Jeff Marsden is here, along with Tim Bonfire from the school committee. We'll hear from them in just a moment. And then at 7:30, thereabouts, we've got Police Chief Meany is here to discuss a few things with us. And then we've got a number of action items, some licenses and permits, of course, to approve, an update on the Medfield State Hospital Selectmen's report, and some other odds and ends. So I think without further ado, we'd like to welcome our new superintendent, Jeff Marsden, and Tim Bonfire are here. And gentlemen, thank you very much for coming. We appreciate it and stuff like that. Yeah.
So thank you for having us tonight, and Jeff is going to do most of the talking, but as many of you know, this is an exciting time for the school department. We have a new superintendent after 14 years of really incredible service from Bob McGuire over his time as superintendent. But we did a search last year, and a great talented committee that did a short list and then a pretty extensive interview process, and we're very happy to have Jeff because he was the superintendent in Rentham, and the reviews and the sort of reference checks were just phenomenal. And to date, I've heard a lot of people talk about how happy they are with the choice and how things are moving very well. So we're very excited. So I'm going to let Jeff talk about what we're working on this year.
Thanks, Tim. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I appreciate the opportunity tonight. Just want to give you a quick overview of what's going on in the school department, and I'll be brief, and any questions you want to ask, you can certainly do that. We had a great start to the school year. We opened up with our enrollment of 2,625 kids, which is down about 80 students from last year. Although our kindergarten class was up 18 more than we anticipated. Mm-hmm. So we're going to watch that. We just got recent projections from NESDEC, who has been doing the projections for the school district for the last 5 years. And we'll take a look at those and try to track that as we go through the budget process.
Jeff, how many in the kindergarten then?
156, I think.
So that's still way down from the high school classes now.
It is.
Yep.
It's much lower, yes. September in Medfield features our parent information nights, and we had them at each school, and they were very, very well attended. And I attended almost all of them, and was very surprised and excited about the amount of school pride that is in this town. I mean, it's just so obvious. You go there, the parents are excited to be in the school. They go over the presentations with the principals and just can't wait to get in the classrooms and meet the teachers. So just a wonderful experience and a strong sense of community within the school department. We have some initiatives that we're working on this year. As many school districts are in the state of Massachusetts, we're implementing the teacher evaluation, and we're doing that district-wide, and that was put into law a couple of years ago. So we spent 3 days in professional development so far this year, and we have a half day coming up next week in which we're going to do some more professional development on that. But that's really a culture shift in school departments, because you're looking at evaluation in a whole new way. So before, I think traditionally, and Mr. DeSorga can probably remember these, you had that one scheduled appointment where the principal would come in and watch what you do, and you did that for 45 minutes, and your evaluation was based on that. Well, now things have changed where, again, that culture shift, we're asking teachers to look at setting goals and have one goal as part of their professional practice, and then one goal that's tied directly to student learning. Mm-hmm. It needs to be a measurable goal, and in some cases establish metrics in which they're going to assess kids on it and keep track of that, and then report that out to their supervisor. The other part is that there's many observations that happen. So it's not just that one observation a year. It can be up to 10 a year, depending if you're a new teacher or a veteran teacher. So that, again, is a culture shift that, and we're looking at it as not as a gotcha, but as something that can improve teaching, improve learning, and to give teachers meaningful feedback during that process. So we're excited about it. We've done a lot of training, a lot of preparation, and we started doing observations last week, and we'll continue to do those throughout the next school year, and then provide feedback. The school committee and the Teachers Association will take a look at it at the end of this year to see what we've negotiated in terms of forms and all the process, and then adjust that as we feel necessary, because most of what Medfield agreed to was what the state put out there. But if that doesn't work for Medfield, then we can certainly tailor that to what our needs are. So that's something that is really important to us. Teacher quality is really important, administrative quality is really important. There's nothing more important other than school safety than who's in front of the kids each day. So we want to make sure that's top notch. The other initiative that we're looking at is the Byod, the Bring Your Own Device initiative in the 9th grade, and also the iPad initiative that's going on in the 8th grade. Really taking a look on the cutting edge of providing technology to our kids and use that to increase their learning. It's been great so far. It's in full swing. We're going to evaluate that process through this entire year, but we're looking to expand that so that kids that have that experience in 9th grade will have that throughout their high school years. And just can't thank the parents enough for the support that they've given purchasing those devices for our kids, which many districts that isn't the case. So very, very pleased that our parents support the program and have done that for us. The teachers have had a lot of training and will continue to have lots of training around this, because in order for this to work, you really need to have teachers that are not only committed to that, but also have the training to integrate the technology into their teaching. So our teachers have been fabulous with that, and the professional development has been top-notch in that area. And then lastly, we'd be in the FY15 process, and we spent some time today, actually, as an administrative team, looking at what our priorities are in the budget, and we want to build our budget around what the system priorities are in terms of curriculum, instruction, assessment, teacher and administrator quality, student support, business and finance. So we're really trying to tailor what we need based on what our priorities are as a district. So we've had that conversation. We'll bring that conversation to the school committee next week, and then we'll go through the process with the warrant committee, you folks, and everyone else. So certainly a more aggressive timeline than I'm used to. We're in my former district. Our town meeting was the second Tuesday in June. So it's a little bit different in terms of what you folks do here. So it's much more aggressive, and it's great. I mean, I think it's a great process that has worked very well for the town of Medfield, but certainly one that I'm not used to. But it'll be great. Lastly, I just want to thank Mike and Christine and everyone at Town Hall for being so great in this transition and being supportive. Chief Meany and Chief Kingsbury also have been a great support. And clearly, Medfield has a very strong team, and I'm just really happy to be a part of that and proud to be a part of that. So I'll take any questions that you may have.
Pete, would you like to start?
Sure. I guess one of the things that the reason I'm asked about the kindergarten size is I've noticed that the class sizes are getting smaller and smaller. I mean, the average class size, I guess, in the high school is around 230, 240,
Correct.
I think. And so that I'm hoping that as we have fewer students, that maybe we'll spend less money over the long run, and that we could lower people's taxes as a result. And so that's just, I guess, that's not a question, but it's just a comment.
Sure.
One of my aspirational sorts of things for our town budget. I guess the only thing that I can think of to ask, Jeff, is if there are things that we can do as a board of selectmen on the town side to help you in the schools, because we certainly want to keep up the schools.
Well, I think, at this point right now, I'm still trying to get my way through everything, and I could probably speak better to that in a few months. But, right now, certainly the support that you have historically given the school department is something that, I certainly value and want to keep that relationship positive. So I appreciate that.
I think one of the things that's really served Medfield well is the longevity of the personnel. I mean, Bob McGuire was here for a long time,
Right.
19 years, I think, total. Mike Sullivan is the longest-serving town administrator in the state at this point. I think that helps a lot.
It certainly helps, absolutely.
I mean, we had an employee from the highway department a couple of years ago that had worked for the town for 60-plus years.
Yeah. Yeah, consistency is important in any organization, so I think that's something that we look forward to as well.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Richard? Yeah.
I just had a couple. The Board of Selectmen earlier in the year developed our system of goals. And looking over that, there's a number of them that actually tie in and involve the school department as well. One of the goals was we wanted a supportive and positive atmosphere, with the board's interaction with town hall staff and the superintendent of schools and all the department head employees, which you just mentioned. That's incredibly important, I think, to work together with that. We also had developed joint cooperation between all town boards and committees, including the school department, to combine technology, energy efficiency, building maintenance under one leadership position that can be shared by all departments. That we need, I think, work together, so the school is in one entity, the town is another, that we can pool those resources together financially. It just makes sense to do that. We also had to develop a 5-year planning from department heads and committee chairmen using the Water and Sewerage Department came up with an excellent long-range plan, a management plan. We're trying to get every department to look into the future so that we can plan. If we know that something's going to last 10 years, that we begin to plan for that in year one rather than just wait, for the very end. We also had planning and developing Medfield into a green community, including usage of solar power, improved recycling ideas, which the school has played a big part. It was interesting. I went down to the Falmouth hockey rink, and in their entire parking lot, they basically made a bridge with the solar panels above the parking lot, very similar to over in Framingham where the Logan Express is. And I'm just envisioning myself, what an example for kids. We have such a large parking lot at the high school,
Right.
at the middle school, something like that, to begin to use solar power, let kids appreciate and realize the value of that. I just always thought, I was very impressed to see what they did with the Falmouth hockey rink with that. And finally, to ensure that the town continues to provide a high quality of education to its children was one of our goals, and provide a high quality of municipal services to its citizens in the most cost-effective manner, which I think Pete was referring to. We've also developed, which I think you've received a letter, what we call a good neighbor policy. I don't know if you've received that letter or not.
I don't think so. I mean, to committee chairs?
Did they?
I think we
What
did.
does it say?
Well, basically, the good neighbor policy we're trying to get is any work that's done in any neighborhood, that we make an effort to inform the neighbors, the residents in that neighborhood before the work takes place. So, for example, the work we did on North Street or Green Street with the water pipes going in, notify them well in advance. So, and the schools have a lot of property that are in neighborhoods, and we were hoping the school would join along that if in the event work is done, that the neighbors are known well ahead of time and not after the fact. We were trying to make that town-wide. And here's something that I'm able to bring this up in a different capacity. As a former department head and teacher, I brought this up a number of times. It's just my fear of lack of civic education and sitting in local government and seeing what's going on in Washington. And I know because of MCAS tests, the emphasis is on the math, the science, and the English. And I've talked to a number of teachers outside the system and others, especially in the elementary level, when push comes to shove, the social studies, the civic education somehow gets pushed aside because they have to concentrate on, what they're going to be tested on. And I just think it's so important on the local, the state, the national level. And I know we have now the AP government at the high school, which I think has about 38 kids in 2 sections, but that means that's 100 and something kids that can go through Medfield High School and not have any civic education at all. And so that's my little plug from a
Sure.
executive branch here in local government. The more I think we can help educate our kids, the value of civic education is just so important. And finally, we brought up, and Ken Feeney was looking at, on the Wheelock School, there's a sidewalk and a crosswalk that runs from Stephen Lane into the school. There's no curb cuts on either one of those. And we were looking at that, and Ken brought up just concerned if there was a curb cut, the kids would just be flying across the street. Right now, they have to get on and get off. So that's something to maybe look at along with Ken Feeney.
Sure.
With the curb cuts at the crosswalk, because right now, there isn't one that's there. So, but thank you very much,
Thank you.
both of you guys, for coming in.
And if I could just respond, one of the nice things I found out about Medfield is, so the Board of Selectmen goals have the school in mind. And you can see that there's a culture here where we're all on the same team. And having worked in 4 other school districts, that's not always the way it is. So it's nice to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, and just kind of mentioning that I think everyone works really, really hard at trying to think of the town as a town,
Mhm.
even though obviously the school committee has the final say on your budget, and we really don't have anything to say other than just advisory. I think everyone tries very, very hard to work as one town, and I think it's great. You know, it's important to understand
Very
that it works so much better that way rather than fighting over money and stuff.
Right.
I think it works out well. I just have two things
Sure.
to talk about. One is the new teacher evaluation program must be incredibly difficult to try to implement. I mean, I can't imagine trying to evaluate the teachers under this new program, particularly if you're looking at results of the kids, because a lot of the stuff's out of their control. I mean, they can do so much, but the kids also have to want to learn too. I mean, it's
Correct.
going to be very difficult, I
Well,
would think.
just on that point, fortunately, my former district, I was a race to the top district, which means I had to do this a year ahead of Medfield.
Okay.
So I did
Yeah.
this in my former district and
Yeah.
kind of went through the process and learned what to do and what not to do.
Yeah, okay.
So taking that and bringing it here
Okay, yeah.
was very helpful in the implementation.
Yeah.
You know, there will be something called district-determined measures, which, in addition to MCAS,
Yeah.
teachers will be assessed on the measures that we decide as a school district. So there'll be multiple forms of data in which
Okay.
there'll be, so it'll be observation, it'll be meetings, it will also be student performance. So there's many different ways to show proficiency
Mhm,
and to show
mhm.
exemplary teaching. It's not just a one-shot deal, which
No, good.
is the good part of this, I think.
Yeah, no,
Teachers are being observed how many times during the course of the
Some up to 10.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that's because I know the classes vary in their academic abilities perhaps from year to year at times and
Mhm.
stuff. It just kind of ebbs and flows, so I know like this can be very difficult. You know, you don't want to, obviously, and you know that, you
Right.
can't, you don't want to compare year to year type thing
Right.
because you're not working with the same body of students necessarily and
Right.
stuff like that.
But I think trends develop from that data. You know, you
Yeah,
start
okay.
to see,
Yeah,
if you're
over
looking
time.
at
Yeah,
more than a couple of years, if you're looking at 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years out,
yeah,
you start to see trends in some of that data, so you can make some judgments and some interventions based on that.
okay, oh,
Yeah.
good. And the second thing I had was just about, it's not the right word, but like practical courses as part of the curriculum that I think have kind of gone away. I mean, yeah, I know there's so much emphasis on cramming so much in as far as getting the kids pretty much ready for college and a lot of AP courses, but of course, when I was in high school and stuff like that, you know, we had, well, wood shop and we had home economics, a lot of practical life skills.
Mhm.
I don't think I don't know if there's anything there in the curriculum now or not, but it's just whether there's any trends towards eventually getting back to that. Because, you know, the kids come out and they're very smart, very book smart, but of course, they don't have no idea about a checkbook, you know, or anything,
Right.
or how to sew, or
Yeah.
how to put a button back on, you know, a lot of
Right.
practical type
Or
stuff at
about
times.
careers,
We
what
still
Yeah.
do
careers
have
are like.
family
Yeah.
consumer science, which was
Okay.
what we call home
Okay,
economics.
all right, good.
So we still do have that.
Practical financial planning is practical
Right.
finance.
Oh, okay, all right, good. Because I'm just very concerned, you know what I mean? Because it's just, you're just worried that the kids, like I said, get very practical, but then they just, common sense sometimes gets left by the wayside.
Right.
There isn't time for that sometimes, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Do you try to teach the kids what different careers are like to help them make that decision?
Well, they have, I know that because my son and daughter and now my third daughter, as you know, I mean, they have career days still. They do some of that.
That's in the middle school where the,
No, in the high school.
in the high school too?
All
Oh,
right,
good.
All right, good.
I mean, I think there's a lot of try to get people exposure to different
Mhm.
career paths.
Yeah.
But, you know,
Oh, good.
as Richard points out, there's a lot of competing interests in the
Yeah.
school days.
Yeah.
So it's just
It's hard, I know, to fit it in, I know. Yeah, thanks.
Unless we go to a full year of school year.
Yeah,
That'd
there
be
you go.
Or a longer school day.
Yeah, oof, yeah. No, that's good, those are the couple things I had, but I really do appreciate you coming in and chatting.
pleasure,
with us
anytime.
about that, really.
If you just want to introduce
Oh.
Mary Ann is here.
Mary Ann Sullivan, also on the school
Oh, yeah,
committee.
nice to see you, thanks for coming.
And
Nice
just
to see
to
you.
point, you know, one of the things that we really,
You should probably use the mic, they can't hear you at home.
Oh, here we go. Let's look at that, yeah.
one of the things that, to the comment about working collaboratively, I think we as a school committee have always felt that we were part of a bigger part, larger part of the town government. And, you know, in choosing Jeff as the superintendent, that was a quality we were looking for.
For, yeah.
Somebody who could follow in Bob's footsteps of sort of being very collaborative with town government. And
Yeah,
I think now that Mike and Christine put his air conditioning on. I know they've gone to.
They're going, getting along much better, yeah.
Much better.
There's always a trial
Getting around
period.
much better.
Any free
Like it
steps
cold.
tomorrow.
Michael, did you have any questions? or
Yeah,
comments?
I did have a quick dumb question, and probably I just need the short answer because you could probably go on at length about this, but I keep reading about that states are changing over from the MCAS type testing to a core curriculum standards.
Right.
Exactly, in maybe a 2-minute answer, could
Sure.
you say what that means and and are we involved in any of that?
The state of Massachusetts is involved in that. So it looks like, as we stand here today, but things are changing daily, that the state of Massachusetts will incorporate PARC, which is a different type of assessment.
Okay.
MCAS will go by the wayside. This is based on the Common Core curriculum, which is a national curriculum, which we adopted a few years ago as a state. It looks like 2014, 2015 will be implementation. Medfield is actually going to be field testing the test in spring of 2014.
Okay.
So they have chosen us to field test that. We have certain grade levels that will be doing that. And not all kids in the grade levels, but there'll be a couple of classes per grade level that will do
Okay.
that testing. And again, I say as we stand because states are dropping out almost weekly. There was over 20 states involved in the park, and now I believe it's 18. And our commissioner in Massachusetts is the chair of the committee, so I don't see us
Dropping out.
dropping out anytime soon. However, there has been pushback from school districts regarding the field testing because we're required to give MCAS and the field testing
Oh, I
on
see.
top of that. So there's a sense that it's taking up too much instructional time and certainly too much for kids being tested on both MCAS and on PARC. So
Is the field testing on all subjects, or is it this math, science, and English?
math and English only.
Math and English only?
That's correct. So the state has told us that if and when they adopt PARC as the new assessment for the districts, they will still keep MCAS for science, and then they plan on bringing the social studies MCAS back. That's what we were recently told. So it will almost be a two-tier system. There'll be PARC, and there'll also be MCAS going on at the same time.
So I think I saw somewhere recently, probably in the Globe, that Medfield High School ranked in the top 5 in several categories, social environment or something like that, and something else, maybe social studies.
English as well, no, it's
English.
English.
So congratulations, you're doing a great job.
The 3 months I've been here, thank you. A lot of input in that.
And the other thing that I would mention is that the Energy Committee, especially Leah Linsky, has been pushing for those solar panels that are above the parking lot, like at REI over in Framingham, in the schools, but I think that Charlie Kellner was pushing back on that for some reason. So that has been discussed with the Energy Committee and Charlie.
I'm sure we'll take a look at it with the committee and see where it goes.
Excellent.
I did also want to mention in terms of town cooperation, Tim Butfatti in particular has been fantastic in terms of what he's done over and above his commitment to the schools in supporting the Public Works project. He's on the Permanent Building Committee and also now supporting the Public Safety Building project. So it really, I mean, he's a perfect example of the type of cooperation we get between the town and the schools, and it really deserves a lot of appreciation from the people in this town, from all ends of the town, for all he's done.
If it would ever make sense to have joint meetings of the selectmen and the school committee, I think that we would welcome that. So if I think that would actually be a nice thing to do
If that ever
once or
comes up.
twice a year.
Would love to come, would come to, would love to.
How about a couple of weeks, the budget?
We're all set? Okay, great. Jeff, thanks very much for
pleasure.
coming
Thank
in.
you.
Thank you.
Tim.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming. Our next appointment is with Police Chief Bob Meany, and he's got a few things to discuss with us. He's got some stop signs that he'd like to chat about. So, Bob?
Thank you.
There you go.
The formal part of the evening,
Yep.
before you may have some questions and whatnot. Occasionally, I get requests for stop signs
Yeah.
at various places around town. We take a bit of a long, hard look at them. They go before the safety committee, as this group of stop signs did. So I'll just, I'll go over, there's 3 requests. I'll just briefly go over. Eric Road at the intersection with Partridge. Now, you'd think that's fairly quiet. Part of one leg of Eric Road really isn't even an accepted way yet, and it clearly has the gate.
Yeah.
But there's just been evidently a lot of traffic going back and forth. I've talked to neighbors. I've talked to town employees who go up there. And also on Partridge, there is a curve as you come around into the intersection. So one of the things I did also regarding this one is I spoke to Mark Sorrell, town council, and said, okay, one of the legs that I want to put a stop sign on is not an accepted way yet. Can you folks do that?
Yeah.
And his opinion was that because it leads to 3 roads that are accepted in the town of Medfield, it's part of the intersection. So, should you choose to do this, you get 2 thumbs up from town council to go ahead and do it. So that's the first one. So that would be on Eric Road,
Yeah.
on both legs of Eric Road. So Partridge gets to travel through,
Yeah.
and Eric needs to stop.
Okay.
So that's the first one. The second one is Rocky Lane at Granite Street. Now, Rocky Lane at South Street has a stop sign. Rocky Lane at Granite does not. There's probably the same amount of traffic through the course of 24 hours that come out on either end of it, just by the nature of people traveling. And, you know, I get several comments from neighbors that cars just come right out on Rocky Lane onto Granite. And so far, we're good. No major incidents up there, but it made sense to me to just make.
Plus, I mean, you have the bend in Granite Street, and you have Lakewood that comes in right at that spot. That is a rough...
It's a busy little spot. You got the curve on Lakewood, you're coming around Granite. Rocky Lane makes a little bit of an S as it comes out to Granite. So just letting people know who has the right of way, and that if you're on Rocky Lane, you need to stop before you head out onto Granite. Thought that made sense. And then the third one is West Mill Street on both ends.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, it's becoming more and more of a method to get from like the Millis area to the Dover Needham area.
Yep.
Going, towards Dover in the morning,
Yep.
going back towards Millis in the evening.
Yep.
Kingsbury Club is up there now. The center of Medfield is up there now. There's several industries that are very active along West Street and generating traffic. So the thought was to have West Mill Street have the stop signs, one at West Street,
Yep.
down in the area of the Legion Hall, and one at Harding Street by the old railroad crossing. And again, the thought that it gives some definition to the operators as to who needs to stop, who needs to yield the right of way.
Yeah.
You could do pages of these, really, if you wanted to. And you go to some parts of the country, and I imagine there are a lot of stop signs. We tend not to do it in Medfield, so the ones that I bring to you folks have gone through the safety committee, and they've gone through my common sense test and looked and just see if it appears to be an intelligent thing. So that's what I'm asking for, are stop signs, both legs of Eric at Partridge,
Yep.
on Rocky Lane at Granite, and on both ends of West Mill, West Street, and Harding Street. Questions?
Questions?
Happy to take them.
All of this makes absolute sense to me, so I would move that we change the town bylaws to have stop signs as proposed by the chief.
I'll second that.
I believe actually what you want to change are the traffic rules and orders.
That's what I meant to say.
Okay.
That's what we said, yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Great, thank you.
Excellent.
And you have some more questions, right? Now,
I had a number of questions, Judge.
before we started, I have I have Danielle and Lisa Miano here, who they approached me last week, and we've been talking over the past couple of weeks about doing I believe it's called the Walk for Warriors, and basically it's raising funds, raising items to package up and send over to the troops. So with your permission, if they could perhaps speak and let you know what's going on with it, and
Great.
just kind of get it out there so people understand what's going on.
That'd be great. Good. Okay. All right.
Come on up.
Hi, so I'm Danny. I'm a junior at Medfield High School. So yeah, I wanted to organize a walk for warriors. So what I was thinking was send about 20 or 30% maybe to the Wounded Warrior Foundation, and then the rest of the proceeds I would go out and buy supplies to make care packages, and hopefully have like Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts or something help me like organize them and send them over to the troops around the holidays. So I was thinking Saturday, November 23rd, the weekend before Thanksgiving.
Yep.
Because we were thinking people would be around, because if they would go away, they'd go like during Thanksgiving. And I was thinking about like 2.4 miles. So our route was we start and end at the high school. So we were thinking take a left onto Phillip Street and go down to Foundry, and then take a left on Hillcrest, a left on Ledge Tree, and then a right on Fieldstone. And then a left on Fairview, a right on Phillip, and then finally right on South and back to the high school. So if you like know that route. So that's basically, and then hopefully we would get some more money, some more donations, like if I could do something with permission from the appropriate people to do, like get supplies at the the Thanksgiving game, and the tree lighting and other stuff. So yeah,
Great.
that's basically what I want to do.
Very excellent, good. And obviously, you're comfortable with the road. Yeah, that'd be great. So that's excellent. That's very, very good.
I just want to just salute you for your efforts on that. The Board of Selectmen begins each of our meetings with a moment of silence, because in recognition of those in Afghanistan, because I think unfortunately with many people, it's like out of sight, out of mind, and
Yeah.
many people don't realize we're still at war. I actually had jotted down just the past 2 weeks alone, we've had 7 American soldiers that were killed in Afghanistan. There was a Patrick Quinn, who was 26, Jennifer Marino, 25, Patrick Hawkins, 25, Joe Peters, 24, Cody Patterson, 24, Angel Lopez, 27, and Jeremy Collins, 19 years old. So very much this war is going on, and I salute you for your efforts, because I know they would love to get that contact, because sometimes I think they're forgotten. So I
Yeah.
think that's just a tremendous thing
Thank
that
you.
you're doing. Thank you.
Thanks.
So please let us know, I think we're all in favor, please let us know
Okay.
what we can do to help promote it and stuff
All
like
right,
that.
thank
It's
you.
very important for us. So.
Great idea. Thanks so much for doing it.
Thanks so much.
It might be good to talk to the veterans agent, too. I think he'd be very helpful
Yeah.
in working with you on that, too.
Okay.
Excellent, good.
You have to
Thank
do
you.
a motion?
Yeah, that's fine, yeah, motion to, make a motion to.
I would move that we authorize the 2.4-mile walk for warriors
And I'll
as
second
presented.
Okay, all in favor?
that. Aye.
Yes.
Good, you're all set.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that intermission. I thought that might be an appropriate place to pop this in.
No, that'd be
So-
great, excellent, good, thank you.
Go right ahead.
I just had a couple of questions. I've spoken to you, and it's bothered me a number of times. I know you've tried to address the issue, and that's when you're coming up South Street and you're at the light, and the traffic on 109 goes right through the intersection, and then when the light changes on South Street, because the cars are right across that intersection, you can't even come out. I got an email, and the request was, we do have that sign, but many people are feeling that it's very hard to see, especially in the dark. It's a little on the side. And the question this person asked was there a way that it could be a more visible sign, perhaps being either on the traffic pole or something that says, "Do not block intersection," or something to that effect?
I mean, we certainly can do that. The reason why I put them on the signs and put them on the side of the road is because it's right next to the stop line. So I thought people might associate it. But, what we need to do is put them up in the air on the arms. Because not all of the intersections, especially South Street, the traffic light pole, it's not by the intersection. It's up in the air.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's no light, so as you're traveling, and mostly it's heading west. So as you're traveling west in the evening, there's no light pole to put it on. You need to put it on the cross arm over the top. I mean, we can do that.
Do you think that's what, does that work?
Well, what works best is twice last week, we had the guys sitting out there.
Yeah.
And that works the best. And then the other part is we've done the retiming, which you probably know about. And I was just able to watch it tonight when I was coming down and see that, the light turns green at North Street and it starts flowing then it turned red on 109 to south, and then it turned green, and the people got to come out. It doesn't always work. The walk button can interfere with that cycle and foul it up for a cycle or two until it gets back in sync again. And then, and I was just discussing with Mike and Evelyn this afternoon, I think last Thursday night, I came down like at 20 past 5, and I made it past Brook Street. At 6:40, I stopped at the Peak House. There's a lot of cars that come through. Now, the other good news is that the same traffic engineering company, McMahon Associates, that did our retiming and did all that work for us, are the same folks working on Roach Brothers. So they understand the problem. They've worked at fixing the problem. And Roach Brothers, we're going to have to think about that some too, because we're going to have more people coming out of South Street. Now, we haven't had people come out of South Street on a regular basis since last February. So we're going to have to put some thought to that. But the good news is we don't have to educate from the first level, the engineering company. They've already done it for us. So we just
Can
need to
they
enhance
look, and I know you've looked at it a little bit there, but if they was able to get a right turn, so that cars, because right now if the first car is going left, it backs everybody out, and the next 3 or 4 cars might be turning right. If there was a right lane, you'd get rid of those cars. And I know you looked, and Ken had some issues with ADA, whether there was enough room, why that sidewalk is so wide, and actually both sidewalks on both sides of South Street.
Yeah, we need to take a good look at that, and probably, the planning board or zoning board, whoever, they're going to want to take a look at it too, to see, is it something that we could do? Can we change the width of the sidewalk, or when we do that, do we encroach upon what is required for ADA standards for the people that come up the ramp,
Right.
get to a flat spot, be able to turn left or right,
Right.
and then move along.
Right.
So I understand exactly what you're saying, that if we could have people constantly being able to take a right turn and head to Westwood after they're done on South Street, yes, that would be simpler.
Yeah.
So we just have to see if that can be accomplished. But I think, we've got a process to do that now. We got, I've seen the plans, actually picked them up from Sarah Friday. I saw the traffic study they've done. So we got an opportunity to take a look at that between the planning board and, you folks, have Ken Feeney's input on it. And, here's a chance to, if we can, fix it
Right.
or help it.
I just think, because I think Roach Brothers in that back is going to get a lot more traffic than Lords did, because
Yes.
their back entrance now really is the front, and I think that's going to be a very popular location with a lot of cars coming and going.
And probably during the evening commute,
Yeah,
people stopping in to pick up
yeah.
a few items and
On the way home, yeah.
continue, wherever.
And then I think this came up in your safety committee, which I think that's, I don't know if you started that or that was there before, but.
I probably did, but go ahead, what is it now?
Well, no. I just think it's a great sounding board that you do. I just think
Oh.
that's a great idea.
Oh, no, the safety committee?
Yeah,
Oh, that was you folks.
it was before I was here. then.
Yes,
I
yep.
just think.
I think, was Ann Thompson one of the
Makes sense as a
proponents of that?
sounding board.
Yeah.
But it was the issue of Upham Road, or Upham Road. When you come down, and I realize a lot of that is the people at in the nursing home, the employees and stuff have to park there, but you got them on both sides of the road. That makes that a very narrow, you almost have to kind of pull over and wait and let the other car, come through. Is there anything at all we can look at as far as what to do with Upham Road there?
Well, the one part that the town has some control over, the area of the pond there, perhaps, you could move the timbers back a little bit, put some material down there, make it more definite parking spaces, and make maybe 3 or 4 really good spots that are off the road, so it doesn't impede the road. But, now we're going to be cutting a little bit into the grass. So how are people going to feel about that? Not sure how that's going to work. And then, the other random thought I had, and you can throw daggers at me if you care to, like the Dwight Derby House during the day, if there's not people parking there, perhaps we might be able to get 4, 5, or 6 employees from the nursing home that could be there, and even if they block each other in a little bit, it's all them, and they might be able to orchestrate it amongst themselves and get some more cars off the road. I think the problem, we have down there is we've got so many private parking spots, the Upham Road apartments,
Yep.
A&D TV, the laundromat, up behind the bank, then the cleaners and CVS and Needham Cooperative Bank. And, I don't hear a lot of complaints about so-and-so's parking in my lot. It probably occurs, but if it doesn't get to me and it ain't broke, I'm not going to fix it and create an issue. But clearly, that's a tough little road to get down. And yes, I've had to pull over and let people come up the hill, and then I get to go out and go the rest of the way down. Yeah,
I
got it.
actually think that's a very good idea. I wonder if we could call in the folks at Dwight Derby, because during the day, that usually is not used. And if we could take 6 cars off of there, I think that would help alleviate
Just something.
an issue, right? It certainly would help. I think that's worth it. I don't know, get a hold of the Friends of Dwight Derby and bounce that off of them, or? would the best route-
It might be a way for them to generate a little income. You'd have to deal with who's going to plow it out during the winter, and
Well, the
maintain
town
it
plows the Dwight Derby house anyhow.
it's easier when there are no cars in there than when you
True.
got 6 cars parked in there. So they'd have
Yeah,
to
yeah.
Figure that out.
deal with that a little bit. That's not insurmountable. You could do that, but
Maybe weather
Um,
dependent, they would do it.
who's head of Dwight Derby? Is it still Tim Sullivan?
No, it's Cheryl O'Malley now,
Oh, okay.
president of the Friends.
I think that might be something maybe the safety committee can put on their agenda to kind of work on, because we had talked about that the last meeting.
Right,
I mean,
yeah.
That was one of the things, was obviously Upham Road.
Yeah.
And what we could do with that. So
It's a
that'd be good.
bottleneck.
Yeah.
It's,
question, regards to Bob.
We'll get the,
Bob, can you
the,
use the mic, just so the
that'd be
people at home can hear you?
Okay, thanks, Leonard. Fine.
When you have streets like Upham Road that are narrow, at what point do you raise considerations of one-way streets?
One-way streets. Certainly is an answer, part of an answer. But whenever you do that, now you're going to shift traffic from that road to another road. Janes Ave is one way. A lot of the streets over here used to be one way when St. Edwards was in the square, and that all went away.
Mhm.
I would rather try to fix it this way first than make it one way, but it's a consideration, just because you limit where people can go. And now you're going to, obviously, you shift traffic to some other place. Because that's come up before
Yeah.
with residents that wanted, streets one way, morning commute or the evening commute, and
Yeah.
it serves one purpose, but then it shifts the folks to another route because they're going to get there somehow or other. But that has come up.
Yeah.
That has been discussed, that it's a narrow little road, and if
Yeah.
it were one way, it would solve a lot of issues.
Yeah.
It would create some issues too.
Right. Well, I think
With-
too, the fact that staying narrow is actually kind of good for safety purposes. I mean, it's, well,
Yeah,
those
you
cars that
create-
keep, people have to go slow so that they're not flying
Right.
along and stuff like that, yeah.
I was just going to say, with the right turn on Red at north onto
Yeah.
Main now, you could almost have it Upham one way from Main down to Frary. And I don't think you'd, because the people coming down, there are a lot of people come down North Street that cut over and go up Upham
Yep.
to avoid the traffic light, but There's
What
no
might be
really-
interesting is, because we're going to have to do some more changes with the timing of the lights. Once we get Roach Brothers in and they get up to speed and open and we see what kind of business they're going to generate. So perhaps we see if we can do some things with the parking on the edge of the road, perhaps with the Dwight Derby house, see if we can alleviate it. And then once we get Roach Brothers open and now we've got the 1, 2, 3 intersections occupied by businesses, take a look, late spring, maybe even next fall, and see how it's all looking. Because at that point, we're pretty well going to be settled for our businesses here
Yes,
for a
yeah.
while.
Yeah.
I think we're going to be fairly stable. So we could take a look and see if we want to consider something like that.
Mhm. Yeah.
If I could go back to South and 109 for a second. First of all, I want to thank you, as many of us would like to thank you, for changing the timing on North Street, giving a few more seconds for left-hand turn. It really has made
Get out of there now,
really
can't
made a
you?
big difference. Yeah, it's been great. But it seems to me a lot of the problem at South Street is from people making left-hand turns on the Pleasant, and that's what backs the traffic up frequently. And I don't know how you address that because, it is a two-way street. But frequently, you'll see traffic coming eastbound on 109, but it's stopped going westbound. And I think it's because somebody's trying to make a left-hand turn on the Pleasant, and they tie it all up. And that's a lot of what backs it up at South Street.
Where are people going?
Well, they could be going to the bank parking lot, or they could be going to Pleasant Street Apartments, or some people go down there to avoid the lights at 27. They'll go down and go out Curve Street. There's a lot of places they could be going.
Because then you can make it a no left turn.
You could. Yeah, I don't know whether that would
Yeah,
work.
but then
or not.
they're gonna go down and take the next left.
Takes the next left, yeah.
Oh,
Put it
and
on
work
another
their way
street.
back. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's that whole shifting. You're constantly shifting.
Yes, yeah.
You
You know.
cannot put any more traffic on South and 27. That's
That'd
backed
be
up.
done, huh?
That's backed up almost to the railroad tracks now.
Yeah.
So if you keep making one ways, it's going to back even more.
Yeah.
I just had two other points. One maybe is more of a Board of Health question than you, but about 5 years ago, I believe it was the Board of Health, put together a great program of a disaster plan to prepare in the event of a major hurricane, a flood, or a snowstorm. Is the town of Medfield prepared? Do all the departments, the police, fire, town hall, civil defense, does everybody work together? Do we have a plan? And I just thought that was an excellent one. I don't know if since then we've done anything. Are we prepared in the event of a major crisis that we know what we're doing? Are we in good shape with that, or would it be good to practice that a little more?
Well, here's the thing, that particular tabletop exercise they did, it actually was very prophetic because it was half jokingly saying that if we really got a good-sized rainstorm, you're not going to get from here to there in Millis. And a couple of years ago, that proved true because you couldn't get from here to there in Millis. So it was accurate. No, we have not done any since then. That was probably done with some grant money. I'm going to stab a guess at because I think the Board of Health orchestrated the whole event. And there tends to be less of that money available now than there was before. I can tell you from a practical point of view, what happens is that, we get 3, 4, 5 days out, and myself and Bill Kingsbury and Jeff Marsden is going to get tired of talking to me at 10 minutes to 4 in the morning soon enough. We try to figure out what's going to happen and make some predictions as to what we think we need to do. And is everything all squared away and ready to go? And so on a case-by-case basis, we take care of that. And then, for instance, the blizzard back in January, February, we met a couple times down the police station and figured out highway department resources. Can the school get enough plows? Can we have school on Monday? Should we try to or not? Should we just bag school and clear the roads? So those conversations are had during every event. Now, have we sat down around a table and said, okay, if we have a hurricane, the end of October, what are we going to do? No, we've not sat around a big table and role-played and done a tabletop exercise on that. So the answer is no, as far as that goes.
Well, if there was,
Do I think, so, like, one of the things you mentioned was if something happened with the train.
right, like at Wheelock by the water wells or
Right.
something.
So at that point, Bill and I go down there, Chief Kingsbury and I go down, take a look at things. I've got lots of resources I can get my hands on as far as traffic control and whatnot. I can have a command post and some 40, 50 people here in probably an hour working on that part of it. Chief Kingsbury is going to get hazmat folks from the fire service to come in. You're going to bring in the railroad, and then we just all work together to figure it out. Have we role-played that? The last time I think Sherburne did one, 2005, 2006, something like that. I think they simulated a derailed tanker of some sorts over in Sherburne and went through the whole process. But have we done that? No.
Are you getting cooperation with these with like NSTAR and the utilities that, so you know what the story is as far as where power outages are, how to get them back? Are they responsive to us here in Medfield, or are we the, kind of lost child and we don't know what's happening?
It's better. The only time I really got aggravated at him was when I was called the priority number, identified myself, and I was put on hold for 32 minutes. and I stayed on hold just to stay on hold so I could have some words with somebody when they finally were foolish enough to pick up the phone. The chief and I have gone over and haunted the depot in Walpole and waited until the gate opened and then drove in to have conversation with the people. So, but we have a new person, Jack Lopes,
Yeah, he's
who
been
I've
great.
met.
Yeah.
He seems to be very good. So we'll see what happens. You can now look up on the internet, and I can see if they've got our priorities ranked correctly by what we've called in. So I feel more comfortable with that. The one thing that's changed greatly, and we're never going to get back, is, you go back 10, 15 years, the same people from Boston Edison worked in Medfield and Walpole and wherever, and they knew everything about this. You go back a couple of years to that storm in September, the hurricane. There were people here from the North Shore who had to look up on a map to see where Medfield was. So you know that at that point, you don't have the institutional knowledge. The computer screen can tell you lots of stuff, but the institutional knowledge is just a wonderful thing to have, so that they know when they turn that breaker back on, that power is going to come on over there. There's a wire still down in South Street, so we can't turn it on yet. That's what you lose. So it's getting better. We had a low point a couple, 3 years ago where I was definitely very dissatisfied. It seems to be getting better.
Okay.
I do think there's one other problem that came up at that time, and I'm not sure has been resolved yet, and that's that the N-Star workers do not have the ability to respond to requests for help from the town. They can only be dispatched by a computer or by a central dispatching unit, and if they respond to a request for help from the town, they can be laid off for 2 weeks without pay. So they will not respond. They could be sitting in a truck, as happened in some of the storms, and they'd say, we'd like to help, but we'll get laid off for 2 weeks if we do anything other than respond to a dispatch. Now, we tried to address that. Representative Garlick set up a meeting over in the Needham Town Hall. I'm not sure that's been successfully resolved, so.
Yeah, we had a really good system for about a night and a half. We had, there'd be a cruiser, the fire apparatus, the highway, the tree people, the chipper, and we just move along like, okay, here's the next big mess. Don't worry about what it says in the computer. You fix this mess, you got 100 houses back, just because you know. And we brought them along, and we got it all done. And, the next day when the sun came up, guess it wasn't real pretty. It was a good idea on our part, but it got some of the N-Star guys in a jam. So we had to back off from doing that.
And then the last question, and you may not want to answer this, but as you know, since March, there's been 22 Dunkin' Donuts held up, all in this area.
Mhm.
We now have 2 Dunkin' Donuts in Medfield. Are we prepared to protect our Dunkin' Donuts?
You don't want the guy leaping through the window, is what
No,
you're saying, with
no.
the pistol? We have been monitoring that for the past month, since we got our own standalone Dunkin' Donuts. There is a task force that's working on that. We're part of it,
Okay, good.
so
Good. That's kind of scary. I mean, he's been going since March.
it's very
I guess
concerning.
yesterday he had 2 within an hour period.
Up in Burlington somewhere?
Burlington,
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
it
they've
gets concerning.
They've hit Westwood and Norwood and
Been
places
near
around
here.
here, I think, quite
Canton,
near here.
Westwood, they've been
Yeah.
all around us here.
Right.
Okay. No, that's it. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
I had a couple questions. Have the 2 coffee shops, the Starbucks and the Dunkin' Donuts, has the traffic in and out of those worked out okay so far? Good.
So far,
right.
we've had 2 crashes at Dunkin' Donuts. One was coming out on 27, and one was an employee whose car was hit while they were parked in the lot
Yeah.
sometime during the day. So, and I've noticed a couple of people looking very dispirited, trying to exit onto 109 and take a left turn.
Yeah.
And, with a look in the face like, really, why did I do this?
Yeah.
I'm not going to do this tomorrow.
Yeah.
So far, it's been okay.
And don't worry, I'm over there several times a day monitoring the traffic, so we're all set.
Thanks, Chris. So the
I
last,
wasn't going to say that, really.
Well, they're going to see me standing out there.
We're worried we might have to have an intervention.
the last thing that I'll mention is that a couple Saturdays ago, I went to the Mass Municipal Association Fall Selectmen's meeting, and they had the Watertown Police Chief, DeVoe, and Superintendent-in-Chief Daniel Linsky of the Boston Police Department talking about the marathon bombing. And the basic takeaway, I mean, the chief from Watertown told a very poignant story about only 3 officers were on duty that night in Watertown, and they were following this car, expecting that it would be the usual stolen car thing where the person would pull over and stop the car and then run. And that first officer who got there was 2 car lengths away from the bombing suspects when they opened fire on him. And I guess he just had to lie down on the seat and throw it in reverse and get out of there because he was just too close to them. But I mean, it was a very dramatic story that he told about, and then there was a sergeant who I guess was also on duty at the time, and these 2 guys basically were in a firefight for like 8 or 10 minutes with these 2 characters. But their basic takeaway was that this stuff happens occasionally. You know, we hope that it doesn't happen very often, but the big takeaway that they had was be part of these regional groups, and I think that we are part of those regional groups.
Yes.
The chief from Watertown said that, you know, he had, I don't know how many police chiefs it was that showed up to help him, but it was a lot. And
Probably
so
more
that-
than he wanted.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
but you know, you probably want more than one, so that we are part of that sort of regional compact, and so that if something happens here, you can get on the phone and they'll all come here.
Yeah, and actually, you know, by 3:20, the afternoon of the bombing, Officer Jim O'Neill and Officer Eric Pellegrini with all their gear were going into Boston,
And that's because we're part of that regional compact.
Metropolitan Law Enforcement
Yep,
Council.
good.
And that night in Watertown, Officer O'Neill was heading back in anyway. He went into the Boston Common, which was where everyone was staged, and then they went out from there. And you know, he's on the SWAT team with all the gear, head to toe. He gets out of the armored personnel carrier, and all the unexploded ordnance that's still on the ground all over there in Watertown. He's just kind of like stepping over it, you know, dealing with the issue. So we are very much clearly involved in that. Eric Pellegrini was involved in the search, you know, that day-long search and whatnot. So yeah, we are definitely involved in it, and I end up actually being the treasurer of the organization. So,
Do you get together with the other chiefs and just, I mean, we went to the conference over in Dedham on the tragedy that was happening with the prescription drugs and the number of kids
right.
getting involved. Do you work with that with other towns and make kind of a game plan that, you know, you're working with Walpole, Westwood, Norwood, and other communities like that?
first Thursday of the month over at, well, we'll all know it as the Pancake House, over in Sharon on Route 1. 8:30 to 10 o'clock. Every Norfolk County chief is usually there once a month, and we go over anything we need to go over.
That's great.
So yes, that's a regular conversation that's had.
And you know, that's a two-way street. I remember someone called one time to complain that there was a Medfield police officer when there was someone lost down on the South Shore, and they were saying, why do we have our police officers down there in Situate or one town down there? Why is Medfield sending them down there? A few months later or a year later, we had a woman that was lost in the middle of the winter, and we had police officers and police staff, actually a police dog from, was it Walpole?
From Duxbury, actually,
Duxbury, the dog that found her?
and the sheriff's department, I believe, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of that cooperation between all our departments that you don't realize. Yeah, I mean, it's what you said. You've got 3 police officers on duty in Watertown. They're not prepared to do that until they call in all these other departments, and they have hundreds of officers there in no time.
Thousands, he said 3,000.
Yep.
Yes,
And the
yeah.
Mass State Police are also very helpful, too. They're always willing to come in and help us, so
Yeah.
it works well.
All set?
Right.
Chief, thanks
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to action items on our agenda next. First up, we have a vote to award renewal contracts for the retiree Medicare plans for the calendar year 2014. Yep.
We have 2 Medicare plans for
Okay.
retirees, and unlike our regular health plans, which renew on July 1st, the Medicare plans renew on January 1st because they're tied into the change in the Medicare rates. So we have one with the Tufts
Yep.
Advantage, Preferred Advantage plan. That actually went up 5%. And then we have through Maya, we have a Blue Cross Blue Shield MedX 2 plan with a prescription drug rider, and that went down, I believe it was 7 or 8%.
Something like that, yeah.
So the committee, Insurance Advisory Committee, met last week and recommended that you award contracts for both of those. And the treasurer, we give that information to the treasurer's office, and they process it through the payroll for the retirement systems, so.
Okay, good. So you have a motion?
I would move that we award the contracts as recommended by the Insurance Advisory Committee.
And I second that.
Good, all in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
Fortunately, the Tufts plan only has 8 people in it. It's a very small plan. That's the one that went up. The other Medicare, Blue Cross Blue Shield Medicare plan has a lot more in it. I think it's well over 100, so. And that went down, so.
Next up for our action items, we've got Gina Minio from the Medfield Cultural Council, or the chairman, is requesting the selectmen to vote to accept the disclosure by a special municipal employee of financial interest in a municipal contract for herself and for members of the Cultural Council. We've got Diane Borelli, Steve Catanese, Susan Parker, William Pope, and Isabel Wood. And I think it has to do with disclosure, I guess, for grant applications. And we have a very complicated form here and stuff for everyone signed.
Looks like the whole cultural council is
Yep.
conflicted.
Yeah. So,
That's because they spend their own money out of pocket and need to get reimbursed for it, so.
yeah, that's great. So, like I said, do we have a motion?
I believe you need to, motion to exempt their financial interest
Yep.
in the activities of the Medfield Cultural
Okay.
Council so that they can be reimbursed for their out-of-pocket expenses.
So moved.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Yeah, these forms are unbelievable. Look at all the boxes to check off and stuff. So good.
Thank you.
Next, we've got Selectman Peterson wishes to discuss the appointment of a steering committee to establish guidelines for the proposed pocket park located on North Street that's adjacent to Zebras.
Jean Minio came to see me in my office hours last Friday at the center and had a draft plan to try to make the pocket park, well, it's called Pocket Park Next Steps. And she was suggesting that we identify a steering committee that would include the Downtown Study Committee, the Cultural District, Park and Rec, business reps, and others that would be interested in order to start moving the little pocket park there forward. This is the land between the, I was going to say the mobile station, between the Starbucks and Zebras. Gene, I think the thing that makes the most sense is if you tell people what you're proposing, if you're willing to do that. Naming contest, workshop, charrette for the design concept, and then an implementation plan.
Right, so that was part of a conversation that was happening in those 2 weeks when the Visions and Voices chalkboard kiosk was up in the park. And we had over 150 people leave comments on the board, and then we also had meetings with students from MAP and from Montrose, and then we had a picnic on a Friday afternoon where all the cultural district committee members were invited to come. We had about a dozen people show up, and they were representing Park and Rec, Fine Lake Preservation Trust, Town Planning, First Parish Church, Zulo Gallery, the Cultural Council, Zebras. Richard was there towards the end of that. So it was a lot of people talking about the park, demonstrating that they actually care about the park and they were interested in that conversation. So I did summarize that conversation. That's what the next steps is, and what you just mentioned was there's sort of a 3-step process that came out of that. One was the recommendation for the steering committee that would represent a lot of these different stakeholders, that everybody would have sort of a collaborative team approach towards what might be designed for the park. And then a naming contest that would help extend out to the greater community for the park. And then also to hold an open meeting for a design concept that would include some of our resident landscape architects and designers that could be part of that to help move through the brainstorming session that was happening in the park. So basically, the conversation was around people asking for public process for public space. And, you know, I think there's precedence for that kind of a process from the 2006 Downtown Study Vision and Action Plan, where they engaged different parts of the community in different locations, talking about the downtown study plan and how to move forward with that. So I think essentially it comes down to everybody wants the same goal, which is the best possible public space that we can get, and there's people with different sets of skills that could be useful to that, whether it's some of the nonprofit expertise in fundraising or community building, or some of the relationships that downtown study committees established over the years. I guess I just wanted to reassure you that there was no preconceived idea about the design for the park in those conversations. Really, it's about trusting a collaborative process to create something better than any one person can come up with. And, you know, that's one idea, that's one proposal, and as I understand it, it's up to the selectmen to make a decision about how to proceed. And I can answer any questions either about the process or the comments or the conversations.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, I think that, and it energizes the whole process about dealing with the little pocket park, and maybe gets us to a result that, and I think that if we can bring all the different people together at the table and have a discussion and open it up to the public and have their input, I think it's a great idea.
People were very
It's a neat
excited
space.
about the conversation. I'm sorry to interrupt, but during Medfield Day, I had 2 local businesses unsolicited offer to make donations for the park because they felt that was valuable for their, you know, their visitors, their guests. And then I had 2 people with design expertise offer their assistance when we got through brainstorming. So I think that's kind of the power of that open conversation. So that was exciting.
Would you, so you would have like a general meeting, you have like a facilitator that would kind of run things, and you would invite all the different boards who would be participants who would have an interest in that, plus the community at large?
Right.
And then gather ideas of what they would like to see, then you put all those ideas together and eventually try to come up with one idea. Is that the general idea?
Right.
Okay.
Right. But it's about having a steering committee that would have representatives from these groups. So not that everybody from every committee needs to be involved, but that they're
Who would you
interested
have
in-
on the steering committee?
So we talked about downtown study and the cultural district. We talked about a business representative from that neighborhood in particular, whether they're a part of MEMO or not. You could have a community rep at large that doesn't have a particular, you know, group's agenda.
Park and Recreation?
Park and Rec. It was my understanding they may be the ones tasked with the maintenance and potentially DPW for the construction expertise.
Do we know, is that, Leon, under our control, Park and Rec's control? Who exactly has that?
I'm pretty sure it's under the selectmen's
Selectmen's
control.
control.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that what the deed said? Did you read the deed today? Okay, yeah. I'm pretty sure it's the selectmen.
But Park and Rec generally is in charge of the maintenance of our property, correct?
They, when we changed from having DPW do the maintenance of a lot of the areas in town to having Park and Rec do their own, they agreed to take on some of these smaller areas, like they do the police and fire station, town hall, the park across the street. So that would be included with the type of work they're doing.
Roberta was asking me if they could do the Council on Aging facility. at the center.
Roberta always has a plan, doesn't she? I think that's something we need to take a look at, because that is a pretty big area to take on, and what the best way to do it. I think Highway said they'd be willing to go in and cut I think they do go in and cut the areas a few times a year.
Oh,
So-
I think she said she mows it herself.
She may occasionally, and she has volunteers that, I think somebody donated their tractor mower to go in and do it, but when they have
Be nice
time,
to
the highway
Have the town
does
do
go in
that, I
and,
think.
So that, if I get that right, that's a committee of 5, then downtown study, cultural, business, a community rep, and park and rec? Okay.
And I'm open to other suggestions. We were just, starting with the obvious stakeholders.
Do you have a timeline of what you envision of?
It'd be great to have a first meeting session before Thanksgiving, so their work can be, that design can be carried forward in the first part of next year.
That's fine, so. Guess we can maybe ask people if they have some interest in serving on the committee. I guess they would have to let us know, I guess, or someone know, so we can see how we're gonna handle that. Either that or each of the different departments and different committees could perhaps appoint someone for that. Either way would be fine, I guess, yeah.
yeah,
Do-
we can send out a letter asking them designate someone.
And the community rep, we would just do through the media? Is that-
Yeah.
Can we ask Jean to call the first meeting then of this group?
Yeah, maybe she should be the first chair until you get your first meeting, if you would mind.
Sure,
Well, just so you could
Sure.
get things organized,
Sure.
and then you can decide.
sure.
Are you doing that in motion? Is that a?
I would move that we constitute this steering committee in accordance with the presentation that Jean's made.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Yep.
Good, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just to let the selectmen know, this relates to the Downtown Study Committee. This came in just a few minutes before the meeting started. Brandy Erb has to resign as chair and member of the Downtown Study Committee. So I will call the next meeting of the Downtown Study Committee and see where we are with that. But given that the cultural district is becoming more active and there's the new design sidewalk aesthetics committee, there has been some discussion among the Downtown Study Committee what their purpose will be. So I will start to have that conversation with them, and I'm sure they'll report back to you.
All righty. So we accept her resignation with regret, and we do want to thank her for many years of service to the town. She's done quite a bit of things, has volunteered a lot of time with the town, and we do appreciate all the effort to make Medfield a better place. So we do
Absolutely.
appreciate that. All righty. Licenses and permits. We've got Medfield Youth Soccer is requesting permission to post sandwich boards on November 2nd through November 16th, advertising the upcoming soccer registration.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Yep.
Boy Scout Troop 89 is requesting permission to place a sign at the transfer station announcing the 18th annual Christmas tree pickup and recycling program. The pickup service is going to be available Saturday, January 4th and Saturday, January 11th.
So moved?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Medfield Coalition for Public Education is requesting a one-day wine and malt beverage permit for their event Community Trivia Night to be held Friday, November 15th at the center from 7 to 11.
So moved?
Yeah, I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
Okay, good. State Hospital status update.
Just a couple of things. We have a restoration meeting here at 11 a.m. That's part of the joint coordination meeting. And then the next joint coordination is on the 21st at 3 o'clock. And as you all know, the water tower in the well field passed at town meeting, and the legislation's been to Senate Council, and we're hoping Timothy will move forward on it immediately.
Excellent. That's such good news.
Chris, should the selectmen send a letter to our representatives, the senator, asking them to file the legislation? Just so there's something formally on record, yeah.
Letter, but I believe
Okay.
it has been filed, but we can
Excellent.
follow up with a
Okay.
formal letter.
Terrific.
Is there any question on the wording? Is that wording proper? Is everybody okay with the wording of that?
As far as I know, I think we're still wordsmithing a few items with it, but the article
There-
itself is fine.
I think a lot of people have been looking at it.
So I had talked to Peg Stolfa, and she was also going to coordinate with Steve Nolan, who, as part of the State Hospital News Committee, is also has a legislative supplement, so they were going to take a look at some of the wording there. I don't think there's anything major in the words. It's some wordsmithing. You know, we're trying to make it as non-confrontational as possible. You're looking for advice. I think we'll rely on the final advice of the senator's office in terms of the wording.
I'm sure I'm sure there's other legislative delegations from other towns who will be wordsmithing it as well, so we won't be dealing with it.
There is one issue that we're having to deal with, and it's the suggestion that we pay for the land by having a deduction from our cherry sheet.
Well, that's different than the water tower and the well field.
Oh, that's for the land itself. Okay, yeah, you're right. Okay, so that'll come up later on when we get to the.
All right, so that's great. So it's very good news.
Yep, so that's moving forward slowly, but moving forward.
Good, excellent, okay. Selectmen's report, Pete.
First of all, the Medfield Cares About Prevention group had its meeting last week, and they didn't get the federal grant that Don had applied for, and Susan Anderson Navolta had applied for, unfortunately. But the group's going to keep going, even without the $625,000 of federal money. I guess the high school is having, they had a pizza before the football game. They did a barbecue last Friday before the football game. Hero walks down at Gillette Stadium on the 20th at 11 a.m. Let's see, the number one freshman problem that was reported was stress. Yeah, I don't have my sheet with the rest of them, but it was stress and then test anxiety type things, I think, and it wasn't real problematic stuff. It was my sense. It wasn't things that scared me. So that was good. We had a very good presentation by Susan Anderson Navolta's daughter, because Susan couldn't be there, so she sent her daughter, who did Laura, did just a great presentation. And the one thing that I put down that she said was that the videos really work with the kids, but that the videos that she had seen when she was at Blake were from the 1950s, and they mainly just made fun of how the people looked. And so that she said if you could get more up-to-date video, she thought that would make a better impression on the kids. And she said the number one deterrence was the parents. And so I thought that was a very astute comment on her part. And so, and she's, I gather that she's one of those kids that's made a positive choice in her life not to get involved in certain behaviors. And the police chief mentioned that they're actually doing a drug take-back day on October 26th at the police station, 10 to 2. And they have that bin in the lobby of the police station all the time, but they're doing this concerted effort on that day.
These like the prescription drugs and stuff?
Prescription drugs, yeah. Yeah, we have an assistant district attorney, Jennifer Rowe, who comes to the meetings at MCAP now, and she said that the number one drug problem in Norfolk County is the unauthorized use of prescription drugs, basically. And I mean, you hear about parties where, unfortunately, everybody just puts the prescription drugs in a bowl, and then people just take handfuls. And
well, I think unfortunately people's medicine cabinets over years gets filled and filled with all kinds of things.
oh yeah. I mean, you have you get these huge numbers of Percocets for having a tooth out or something. It's just because whoever's writing the script doesn't want you to. They don't want you to come back, apparently, so that they give you way too many. The Medfield Foundation had a meeting, and yeah, I guess I don't have anything special about that. I mean, everything's going forward on the Angel Run, and the Volunteer of the Year is now open, so if anybody knows anybody that's been doing stellar extraordinary volunteer work in Medfield, I encourage you to go to the Medfield Foundation website and get the nomination form and put in a nomination for them. One of the fascinating things that I did was to go to this Mass Municipal Association Fall Selectmen's Conference on the 5th. And we heard that main presentation to all of the people from the two police officers or chiefs, and then we had these breakout sessions. I didn't go to the one on evaluating the town administrator because there was a big handout on that, and so I figured that I'd just bring that handout back, and on the way out there were extra folders, so I got you guys copies of. I just picked up copies of the written materials. The session that I went to was on the sustainable water management, which had the DEP commissioner, the assistant commissioner for, well, she's in charge of the new water regulations. Apparently, there are new water regulations coming out that are going to regulate us in terms of our water usage that should get published very soon. The good news that I took away from it was that, and there was a PowerPoint that I circulated to everybody on this group and that they emailed out to us afterwards, that this group got, and I sent it to the water and sewer people as well. But the good news from what Mike and I had heard maybe 10 years ago was that the regulations are going to be based on science this time. The last time it was just some sort of half-thought-through idea that they wanted to get river fish in the Charles River, and so that we were going to have to use less water because of that. Mm-hmm. Our engineers from SEC at the time were telling us that the water flow hadn't gone down for 100 years or something in the Charles River, and yet we're being told that we can't water our lawns, basically, because they want to get these river fish. Mm-hmm. And at the meeting that Mike and I were at, people raised their hands and said, what about the dams? You know, the dams are the reason you don't have river fish. And so that they've apparently done a study now, and I haven't seen it. They say it's public, and so that if you want to get the science, you can actually go and see their science. They're going to come out with these new regs pretty soon.
Is this the Charles River watershed that comes up with the regulations, or is it the state?
The state. It's the DEP.
It's as a result of heavy lobbying from a lot of the associations like the Ipswich River and the Charles River and the Friends of Ducks or Ducks Unlimited and the Audubon and all of those groups, and they put a lot of pressure on to us to
is it uniform,
regulate.
So everyone's under the same regulations, or it depends on where you are on the river? Has different.
Depends on which river. It depends on whether for example, Boston and Cambridge and those places would be exempt because they get their water from the Quabbin, and the Quabbin has
They can use as much water as they want. They can just let it run all the time. It's no big deal.
I guess they've got definitions of because they said that the two rivers that were in the worst categories were the Ipswich and the 10 Mile. I had never even heard of that one. And so it depends on how stressed your river is as to what sort of regulations you're going to end up.
Like Medfield, we're on both the Charles and the Neponset.
Yep.
So are we divided on that, or how do they?
Yeah. And
one side of town has one regs and the other side has another?
No. Where it becomes complicated is until a few years ago, you were not supposed to take water out of one watershed to use in another. So we get 80% of our we get 80% of our registered water from the Neponset, and yet there's only probably 15% of the population lives in that part of the watershed. 10 or 15%.
What percent do we get from it?
I think it's about 80%.
I think we get from the Neponset.
Yeah.
Most of our water comes from well 6, which is the Charles.
It does now, but that's not registered water supply. Our registered water supply are primarily wells 3 and 4 down behind the Wheelock School.
I'm sorry,
Because
are you making a distinction between registered water supplies and what we actually do?
yes, yeah.
Oh,
You are licensed. The state licenses you to withdraw water from a specific well, and in our case, there's registered water and there's permitted water. The registered water you have an automatic right to, and those are usually the older wells because
That's 3 and 4.
that's 3 and 4, which are the Neponset. Well number 6 is permitted.
3 and 4 in the Neponset are the ones that have the manganese, so we try to avoid
We
those.
try to avoid using them.
We're not using 4, are we? We just
No.
use 3, right?
Yes, we just use 3, and we try not to because of the manganese problem. But that's where our registered water comes from, for the most part. I believe we also get 500,000 gallons a day from when the state hospital turned over their water rights to the town, and that's in the Charles. So we have roughly 1 million gallons, I guess it'd be 2/3, 1/3, wouldn't it? 1 million gallons a day in the Neponset and 500,000 in the Charles for our registered permitted water supplies. And it's what they call an interbasin transfer. If you take water out of the Neponset and use it in the Charles, that's called an interbasin transfer.
It's a nightmare.
And they have had to recognize that, in fact, these do exist. And if you go down deep enough, it's probably all the same water. But when it
You don't wanna tell
falls,
anyone
when it
that.
falls from the sky and lands on the ground, there's a divide. And if it goes this way, it goes in the Neponset. If it goes this side of that divide, it goes in the Charles. And those are how they define watersheds. So,
Well, at any rate, they're about to come out with their final regs, and the general statement seemed to be that if you're not in a stressed basin, and you're not looking to add a lot of draw, you're not going to really have much problem. It's not going to, although.
Believe it when we see it, right?
one of the problems I have with these regulations is they give no recognition to a community that has done a lot to preserve their water supply, protect it.
They
We've
said
done
that
in-
they did, and they said to look, because we were in Franklin, and they said, look at what Franklin has done, and they've gotten credit for it, but I don't know the details of that, so. But I was interested, because they said they do give credit to communities for what they've done.
What you've done.
They're going to.
What you're going to do, or what you've done
Recognition.
this year, but what you did 5 years ago, they don't give you any credit for.
Well, they said, what I wrote down was recognition for steps already taken, i.e. Franklin. So hopefully they'll give us credit for what we've done, but we'll see. And then there was a session that I went to on managing town infrastructure and assets, and it was all based on the capital committee chair from Arlington and how he does and how they do things. He's obviously worked out a very detailed way of doing it there. But it was a very good presentation. Nice to see my fellow selectmen out there too.
It's interesting to see what the other problems are that communities are facing, and you don't feel so bad when you come back knowing what some of the other communities are facing.
So, there was a selectman from Millbury who asked the question about renovating buildings, and I felt so smart. I could just turn around and say, well, let me tell you.
Yeah, you're
It's not
quite an
worth
expert on that.
renovating.
Yes.
And I wouldn't have known that a couple of years ago. And then the other thing was Bill Massaro was nice enough to come and see me during my office hours this past week, and Bill has been working on the bylaws for the state hospital, which also involves the codification of the bylaws for the town, which is what's going on with the Charter Bylaw Committee at the moment. And I guess we're still awaiting to get bylaws back from the police. And then there's a category where we're not sure if the department has any regulations at all, and that would be the fire department, the park and rec, and the housing authority. And I guess the building department says that they don't have any. So I guess I'm wondering if maybe the Board of Selectmen can help the 4 groups that haven't responded yet to Sarah Raposa, whether we could.
What was
Sure,
it? Police,
but-
fire, park, and rec, what was the other one?
Yeah.
Police, fire, park and rec, housing authority.
Housing.
Housing authority is, well, I guess that's the Medfield, is that under us, or is that's a
It's
state
that's
agency?
technically a state agency. It's under the state.
But we know some people that are on it, so maybe we can
Yeah.
ask them to help us.
I believe I did have a conversation with the police chief about the bylaws, and his are incredibly antiquated, and they are in the process of updating them. He does not want them included in the codification when they so clearly need to be updated and transcribed, that it was going to be more cost-effective to add it at a later date than add
Okay.
it now. But I will follow up with him on that.
Mhm.
At least get a list of what he has, and then someone perhaps could start looking at also. I mean,
I believe he's working on it.
The general code was just gonna put them all as part of the price that we paid them. They were
Right.
gonna do it for us, so that I guess there was some effort to try to get them in. And ultimately, I think our goal is, once we get the codification done, is then to look at the Medfield State Hospital and what we need for that and for other big developments in town like the West Street. So hopefully we can get going on that part of it too.
Can I just follow up on that? Was Mark coming in as far as the specific ones dealing with the state hospital? We were going to have Mark head up.
Right,
internally.
and
Where are we with that?
He requested at your last meeting that he be given some time on the agenda, so we will do that as soon as he's available to
Okay.
come in and talk to you about that. He wanted to address you specifically regarding that.
Okay.
And that's it, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Richard?
I attended a couple of committee meetings. One was the Committee and Study Memorials, and on Veterans Day, the town will officially dedicate 2 streets that have been there since 1970, but have never been officially dedicated, and that's Lee Road and Schneider Road. And it's not very long, I'll just take a second here, but Lee Road is named after Earl Lee, born 1922, was killed 1944. Earl grew up on Park Street, actually in Bill Meehan's house, in small-town Medfield. During the warm days of summer, he loved to walk with his brothers and sister along the tracks to go swimming at Kingsbury's Pond. Graduated from the Hannah Adams Path School with 23 classmates as a member of the Medfield High School class of 1939. At the outbreak of World War II, Earl enlisted in the U.S. Army Air Corps on October 15, 1942. He was a flight engineer, top turret gunner. He was aboard a B-24 named Sadsack, based out of England. On February the 4th, 1944, his plane was out of commission, and the 10-member crew was forced instead to fly on a B-52 called the Black Widow. Their mission was to make a bombing run over Frankfurt, Germany. After crossing the coast from England into German-occupied France, the Black Widow fell out of formation, the intercom had failed, and the engine was smoking. Instead of turning back, they spotted a German V-1 missile site and dropped their bombs there. German fighters then attacked, killing several crew members. The plane crashed and exploded. 6 crew members were able to bail out. Earl was one of them, but he was machine gunned while parachuting from the plane. The 5 killed were first buried together in a local cemetery. After the war, they were recovered and returned to the United States, and they are now interned together until the end of time, which is a quote, in the Jefferson Barracks National Cemetery in St. Louis, Missouri. And the second one, Schneider, was George Thomas Schneider, 1929 to 1952. He was raised in West Virginia, did not want to spend his life working in coal mines, so at the age of 19, he moved to Harding Street, Medfield, to live with his sister and her husband. That was the Hours family. George went to work in the brickyard. A good-natured, adventurous young man, he made many friends in Medfield. At age 22, he was drafted into the Army and went to Camp Chaffee in Arkansas. He was with the 5th Armored Division and was sent to Korea. He was killed while fighting the enemy in Chawang, North Korea on June 27, 1952, at the age of 22. Private First Class Schneider is Medfield's only serviceman killed in action during the war, and he was heavily decorated. He was returned to his native West Virginia, where he is buried in the Point Pleasant Cemetery in Abbott, West Virginia. So those 2 streets will officially be dedicated on the Saturday before Veterans Day. I went to the planning board meeting, and they officially agreed to change the CVS plan to permit widening of the entrance exit on Route 27 by 8 feet. That work should begin this week, actually. I also was able to meet, and thanks to Christine and Evelyn for the contacts with both the chairman of the Dover Board of Selectmen, Jim Dawley, and the Millis chair of the Board of Selectmen, Charlie Visici. And we went over the hospital plans. I just want to really thank Bill Massaro and John Harney, who gave up and just did their time and gave up their evening and did a tremendous overview of what's going, some past history, what's going on up at the hospital. And especially, I think, the selectman from Dover was very interested because they're property actually abuts, but as was Millis, and they had a number of different questions. So I think that was very helpful. And they also said they were going to contact their representatives and certainly urge them to support Medfield's legislation when that comes up for a vote. And just as a second part, since that went well, I had mentioned before, the second part, what I would like to do is follow up with that and actually invite our surrounding towns. And I actually have a letter, Evelyn, I'll give you on that. And reach out to our neighbors. And the goal, I guess, would be how we can share resources and cooperate in ways that would be financially beneficial to all the towns involved. Just trying to get the different selectmen together, one representative from the different towns that border us. I thought the Dwight Derby House worked real well. It was a nice kind of informal setting there. And maybe sometime in November, or if that's not good, maybe we'll jump to January or February and kind of get the other selectmen together to see if there's ways we can cooperate with each other. So I'd like to follow up on that, if that's okay with the rest of the board.
Absolutely.
I took part in the walking tour of the State Hospital with Mike Taylor of the Historic District Commission. We had over 100 people that showed up. I thought that went well. It was very informative. A lot of questions people had. Many people had not been up on the hospital campus before and were just impressed of the facility and the number of buildings that were up there. Do we as a board, I know it passed at town meeting, but should we take a vote of our position on the actual override ballot question?
Well, might be a little tricky, right? I don't know what...
You can, my understanding from reading that document that town council provided was that the town can take a position, but cannot expend any public funds to promote an override. So.
Are we okay to take a vote on it?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
So I make a motion then that we vote to support, it's just question one, right? It's just the one question. On the purchase of the so-called Redgate Farm property.
Second?
I would second that.
Yeah, all in favor?
And some good news there. They've actually begun taking out the double poles. There were a number of double poles that were taken out last week. The rest should be taken out this week of those poles without wires. And there were only about a dozen. And those are the poles that NSTAR has direct control over. NSTAR cannot take the other poles out because Verizon and Comcast still have their wires on that. And we will be meeting next Tuesday, a week from today, at 10 in the morning, with NSTAR, Verizon, and Comcast representatives to develop a schedule, I hope, to set a time schedule for the removal of all those poles, of a time schedule to get Verizon and Comcast to take the wires off the old poles and put it on the new poles. Once that's done, NSTAR will be able to take the old poles out. And I actually have compiled a list of all the telephone poles. We can put on a spreadsheet, which I think you recommended, Mike, and then we can just check off. And again, this Jack Lopes is, I can't say enough good things about him, is willing to come in as often as necessary and keep on that until eventually those poles are out.
Most of them on, because I had a couple of residents of Bridge Street that came in.
It's almost every pole in Bridge Street
I was
is a
going
double
to say,
pole. Bridge Street is ridiculous.
And they still have the wires on, that's why they can't.
Correct. They
can't
took 2
take them
poles
down.
out last week of Bridge Street.
Okay.
But literally, it's 90% of all the poles. The other street is Fairview, that almost every pole on Fairview is a double pole. So it's really unfair for the people on Fairview and Bridge Street. It's a safety issue, it's a unsightly issue. So hopefully, we're getting to the bottom of that. And just a couple of thank you to the Highway Department on 2 issues. One, that guardrail over Millbrook on Elm Street. They've scraped and painted. I think it looks great down there. And they also opened up the trail on the Scribner Turkey Farm. And I know that was difficult because it's very wide in the beginning, but then it gets narrow. And they're able to use one type of equipment to clear, and this was thick brush, but then they have to get almost a hand some type of hand mower to actually get the narrower path that actually runs through the property. So
Where's that, Richard?
that it at the opposite on Harding Street, opposite
Is that the Amnott House property?
well, what they call the Turkey Farm, opposite Marlin Road.
Yep.
Uh,
Get
it-
into-
it
get
runs-
into the
and it
hospital.
runs
The
all
town
the way-
right away that goes over to the hospital
all the way
fields.
into the hospital
Yeah,
property.
yeah,
So
okay,
that's,
good.
it looks great. It's open
Yeah.
now. People can hike through that. There were several people in that area had called before, and I appreciate Ken's and the highways, Bobby Kennedy's work on that.
Yeah, they're starting to taper down their work at the town garage. They've got a few more projects they have to do there, but by and large, they're 95% done. So they'll be able to start
Yeah.
getting some of these
great.
other problems done around town, so.
And just a couple of things that are pending, if we can just follow up on. There were those 2 dead trees we had talked about before, one on Spring Street and one on South Street. We were going to find out if they're town or private. Do we know yet? Is that a town tree? They're both dead and clearly going to come down in a
South.
storm.
I gave
Yeah.
after our last meeting, I had an extensive list that I gave to Ken, and he's gone through most of it, but the trees he had not followed
Okay.
up with Ed Hinckley yet.
Okay. And then the graffiti on, I think it's the phone company's box on South and Luffler.
He was going to take care of that.
Great. And I guess the only other thing I have, can we put on our agenda for next meeting or the meeting after, whichever is less busy, just to relook at our goals, just so we keep in touch what they are and see how we're doing with that?
Mhm.
Sure.
Okay. And that's all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
And next meeting, you have the permanent building
that's
committee
gonna be,
coming in, and you also, if we're able to get the OPEB actuarial study done, we'll have the insurance advisory committee,
Mhm.
the treasurer and accountant come in to discuss pension funding and the OPEB liability.
And then in November with the budget, right?
Yeah.
First meeting,
First meeting in November.
November
Yeah.
5.
Yeah, get started with that. All right, a couple things. I just wanted to reiterate too, personal thank you for, Brandy Erb. Kind of caught me by surprise a little bit tonight with her resignation to come up quick today. But I did want to thank Brandy for her many years of service and volunteering for the town with the Downtown Study Committee. It's been doing a lot of good work over time, and I think the Pocket Park, as it's starting to come to fruition, is a perfect example of them, the committee and Brandy sticking with it and really kind of working through a lot of different changes in the downtown, and we're almost there at the finish line there. It was part of their master plan that I think was done in 2006, and they've always kind of kept, the committee's always kept their idea on that, focus on that to make sure that it get done. So it's almost done. It's too bad that she's not going to be available to kind of shepherd that through for the final thing, but it'll be good. And like I said, I just want to thank her for much of her, all of her time spent helping the town out. We will definitely miss her going forward. And a reminder too, like I said, town election, as we had voted on, is this, once again, this Monday, the 21st at the center, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., I think is the polling time,
yeah.
Standard Time. So we really want to encourage everyone out there that's listening to please come and vote, so that we don't have 50 people, exaggeration, but we don't have 50 people just showing up, making a decision on the Redgate Farm issue, particularly after we had such a terrific turnout at town meeting a week ago that had, 500, 600 people. The place was packed. It was terrific. So, it would be a shame to have something that went so well at town meeting and then to have just a fraction of the people show up 2 weeks later to do step 2. The town will not be able, once again, you have to, it's a 2-step process. If the town's going to vote to buy the land, you got to come and vote. And town meeting is great, but that's step 1. It takes 2 things in order to make it work. So once again, very, very important for everyone to show up sometime during the day next Monday. There was a memo meeting just this Monday night I attended at Basil's, the monthly meeting. We had a very, very good meeting, nice attendance. We had a lot of new folks that have joined the local business community, so it's nice to see that. Since I'm on vacation these next couple of weeks, I was actually able to attend the DPW weekly status meeting this morning down at the Down Garage at 8 o'clock. It was really nice to sit in on that and see how they're doing.
people should really be very appreciative. The town, everyone that works in the town really knows how to do things the right way. We've got a terrific project manager, Daedalus, that's managing the project for the town, and not to mention the committee is hands-on that meet me. So the project is coming along terrific. Money well spent and very appropriately spent. If people have a chance, the buildings are starting to take shape. The cinder block walls are going up, so you can start to see what they look like. It's a beautiful site. The DPW has done a fabulous job of regrading it and having it, and it's paved now down there, so people can swing by, not during the week while they're working, but if they ever have a chance during the weekend, if they want to just drive down quickly and just kind of drive through and see, it's going to be a beautiful facility. It's going to be so nice to have the equipment out of the weather, tucked away, and not spread all over the place. It's really looking nice. I can't say enough about how fabulous it's looking.
I think people are going to be really impressed when it's done.
Yeah, it is.
We have had one slight issue with the crews starting at 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah,
And Chris has been talking to the project manager and the
yeah.
contractor about stopping that. We
Yeah,
think
7
we've
is
got
right.
it under control. That doesn't mean it won't crop up once in a while, but
It's one of
We're
those
doing our
town
best
bylaws
to-
that we need to think about enacting.
yeah, well,
It's just-
on a
just-
project like that, when the town is owning it, you tell them
That's all. It's a
stop it.
conversation.
So
It's wonderful. It's nice to
takes
see.
a few days before they get the point. So
But it's great. I do enjoy sitting in on those meetings. I don't understand everything that's going along, but you get a hang of it after a while and stuff like that. And it's nice to see, Bobby Kennedy and everyone down there kind of really involved. It's really coming along nice. It really is. This Thursday, I have my mini town hall meeting up on Nauset. So I think there's probably around 12 people or so that will be showing up. So I'll give you guys a report at our next meeting on how that went. And we attended a weekend or so ago, the weekend of October 4th, the Woodland Theater Company, you did Les Miserables, fabulous production, their first production of the season. It was stunning, like I said, just like being on Broadway. The quality of people, it's amazing how many people that live in the Boston area that have got tremendous theater and singing backgrounds and stuff like that. We had a terrific time, very well attended for all their 4 nights, so they had a good success. They've indicated that they're feeling very good, that they're this was a real watershed moment, I think, for them. They were kind of indicating with their company that I think they've turned the corner and that they've really got building some good momentum. So I couldn't be more pleased.
A positive reputation.
Yeah.
they've established.
Yeah, it's terrific.
I think it's drawing from a wide area. There seem to be a lot of people from other towns, even from Boston, that were coming out to see it. So
Yeah, it was a fabulous production. It's really, really exciting to see. And it's amazing, you forgot, at least I forgot when I was watching that we were sitting in the high school auditorium. It just,
great.
you forget
Yes.
that right away,
That you're not in the theater district.
Yeah,
of
no,
Boston.
really, yeah, they obviously really understand how to light a stage, unbelievably, and the sound and stuff like that, so that you forget right after a moment that you were sitting in
It
high
was-
school.
the thing that really impressed me was the set changes, how smoothly they went.
Yeah.
They must have had 20-some set changes, and it just went like clockwork. So
And they had an orchestra, for the first time, I think, a full orchestra doing it. So, I mean, it's fabulous. Like I said, you forget you're in the high school. You really do. It was a wonderful time. So they've got a couple more performances coming up. I know I talk about it a lot, but it's, I think it's great. It's another one of those little things that makes the town special. It really does.
Yeah.
and the nicest part is when the play is done, you have a very short ride home. You don't have to
Yeah,
drive.
that's true. That's true. It works out quite well. That is it from me. I guess we move on to, informational things. Anything of note there?
Okay, there is one thing I wanted to mention to you that's not on here, that there is the notice of the Suburban Coalition about some legislation they would like the town to support. I would suggest that you read it first. It seemed
Right.
to be it seems to be oriented towards revising the Education Foundation funding formula.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we need to, before you take a position on it, I think you
Okay.
need to know how that will affect Medfield. It's probably something you want to review with the superintendent
First,
before you
yeah.
take a position on it.
Okay.
Um,
Thank you.
There, this morning, well, actually yesterday, when I went to get a pizza, I got a lecture from one of our store owners about people nailing signs into trees. So I spoke to the building inspector this morning. I observed it, and yes, in fact, they had nailed a sign into a tree on North Street, and asked him to take a look at that. And also, when I was on my way back from the Town Garage weekly construction meeting, I happened to go up 27, and I noticed there were about 6 or 7 signs out stuck in the ground in front of the strip mall there advertising pizzas for sale. And then there was another sign in front of one of the other stores advertising a clinic. So I spoke to the building inspector and said, you know, it's if you allow one, you have to allow everybody, and it's going to spread like wildfire.
There are a lot of
So
signs around town.
yeah, so he went around and spoke to several of them, including the mall, the East Main Street mall up there where Shaw's is, and
Yeah.
they had signs up out there for not Shaw's but one of the other stores, and asked them to take them all down. And he's probably going to have to do that periodically, because it's sort of that creeping where
He does,
you
yeah,
don't
yeah.
enforce it for a few weeks and then the signs are right back up. But it's becoming a big problem around town,
That's
I
in
think.
violation of the sign bylaw, right?
Yes, yeah.
That's one of those things that it would be good to maybe have the police, because they're driving around all the time. They're the ones that would see it, unlike the building commissioner. So that if we could get the chief to have the officers keep their eyes open for
I
it.
can talk to him, because technically the zoning doesn't apply to streets, and some of these are probably within street layouts, although some of them are on private property. But
The
Yes.
building commissioner fields a significant number of phone calls each week just from residents who want to call and talk about signs, but he is the one who has to actually go out and enforce it
Okay.
as the zoning enforcement officer.
Good.
I was just thinking that the police could tell them where the signs are, because they're driving around, so they see them, and they could just say, you know, there's one
yeah,
here, there.
although it's a fairly limited area, it's basically in your business zones.
Right,
You know,
yeah.
occasionally you get the yard sale sign, but you know, we allow that anyway for a short period of
He
time.
did a
but-
nice job. I had a call from a resident that was concerned that there was no trash barrel at Starbucks on the outside, and that there was a lot of litter. And John went right over, and now they're going to put a barrel there. So
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
very quick to respond.
Yes, he
really does
is,
a nice
yeah.
job
Yeah, he does.
responding to the public
Mhm.
and things like that.
Gee, I thought I saw a real handsome hard barrel out there, you know, one of those fancy containers that sort of matches the benches.
Yeah.
But maybe one isn't enough.
Mhm.
So.
Good. Excellent. All righty. So I guess we're all set. Thank you very much. Good, thank you.
And hopefully the next time you show up here for a meeting, we will have heat on in the building.
This program was made possible through the generous support of your Medfield friends and neighbors, folks just like you. And thanks for watching.